So today I'll give you an introduction to the whole subject CFD, different aspects of it, the basics. So you've told me that you've never had this course before. Have you ever done a simulation in some commercial software like ANSYS or something? Anyone?
Yes, sir. I have worked on APDL, ANSYS APDL. I have worked a few projects I have done.
Okay, you simulated what?
So normal 3D model, I have simulated like put some pressure conditions and found out the results, the deflections and something like that.
Okay. Debashri or Varun?
Yes, sir. Sir, I did ANSYS
You worked in
and
ANSYS.
AutoCAD, sir. Yes, sir. ANSYS I did, sir.
ANSYS. Okay. So what we do with all those commercial software is basically CFD. And ANSYS, like ANSYS, there is an open source alternative to ANSYS, which is called OpenFOAM. And there are several softwares named Cosmol, Multiphysics, and several others. Okay, before that you need some introduction. Okay, in the introduction I'll actually mention all these things. So this is just not syllabus wise. This is something which is used. This is pretty standard everything. I think I simply taken it from internet, but we must do this in the first class. What did I do? Yes, this is stuck or what? Yeah. So a few basic things. What is CFD? Why do we use it? Where is it used? Physics behind the CFD, modeling, numerics, the whole process of CFD. What are the steps involved in it, and some resources. So what is CFD? So what we used to do earlier, before we had computers, were analytical fluid dynamics and experimental fluid dynamics. For example, you need if you need to design an aeroplane, and you need to calculate the forces on the wing of the aeroplane. What do we do? How can we calculate it? So that's a very difficult question. One way you can do is, if you don't have a computer, one way you can do is analytical fluid dynamics. You know the theory of fluid dynamics. You know the weight of the aircraft. You know about the speed of the aircraft. You know the properties of air, physical properties of the fluid air. Let's say you have some good understanding about different types of flows, laminar flow, turbulent flow. So if you know all the physics behind the flight, so you can use all those theory to calculate the forces on an aerofoil, on an aircraft wing. So that is the analytical method, analytical fluid dynamics. But it has severe limitations. It's not at all accurate. Or if you have very basic geometry, something like a square or something, maybe it is possible for you to calculate forces on it. But an aeroplane wing is very complicated, and it's extremely difficult to get an accurate values from analytical fluid dynamics. So that word does not mean much more in 21st century, I think. Nobody use theoretical method to calculate field variables in complex engineering problems anymore. So before we had computers, we used to do that. And secondly, you can do experiment. You can do experiment on an actual aircraft, or you can do experiments on a mini version of the aircraft, and from the experimental results you can analyze what will be the force on the wing, etc. This is also very difficult. So if you want to simulate an aircraft flight, you need an actual aircraft or a mini aircraft. So in ANSYS, if you want to do simulation once, you do all the setup and press the if you just give the required inputs, and if you just start the simulation, it just started, and if you can end it and you can start it again. But this is not possible with the actual experiment, right? It's very, very expensive. Think about simulation of a car crash. To assess the safety of cars, people do crash simulation. And how many times can you crash a car? Actual car. If you are doing an actual experiment, that also is usually done. Crash test. In actual crash test, you crash an actual car. So if you want to do crash test 100 times, you need to crash 100 cars. You need to destroy it. So that is another limitation with experiments. But in simulation, that's not the case. If you simulate a car crash, you can crash it 1,000 times without that much cost. So these are these we used to do this in the olden days, but now we have computers, and it's possible for us to simulate these actual physical processes in a computer, and we have it's the age of supercomputers also. You can very, very heavy simulations, like for example, we predict weather, right? Climate prediction. That involves a very, very heavy simulation, computationally heavy simulation. This is used. We usually use supercomputers. We have many supercomputers in the country, in IITs and IIScs and some other institutes. So we have replaced these analytical and experimental methods with CFD mostly. And we use a computer simulation, like I told, to predict fluid phenomena. So the last sentence basically shows the entire process. We model continuous fluids with partial differential equations, and then we discretize the PDEs into algebra problem, solve it, validate it, and achieve simulation based design. This sentence is actually talks about the entire process. It's okay. If I start talking about it, it's very, 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 I need to, we'll go through the entire slides to figure out the whole process. That's better. So I think we've talked about this. Why do we use CFD? Like I told, remember these points for analysis and design. It's cost effective, right? Think about crash simulation. It's rapid. It's very fast. it's very accurate. So simulations, like I told you, actual experiments are very difficult because of many reasons. Scale of simulation, hazards in physics. CFD overcome all these issues. So the last point is that knowledge and exploration of flow physics. So you can simulate actual engineering problems, and you can also simulate basic fluid flow and study the physics of it. For example, turbulent flow is considered very complex, and we need a very good understanding of the actual process to apply it in many engineering problems. So we not only simulate real world engineering problems, we also simulate simple fluid flow to study the physics behind it. Where is CFD used? There are so many examples. Just simply go through all these examples. So in aerospace, that's what I talked about in the beginning, right? In aerospace, you can simulate an entire aircraft, wing, the engine, appliances, all sorts of appliances, refrigeration, freezers. In automotive industry, very common. We talked about crash simulation. Biomedical devices. Actually, this is recently this has become very important in healthcare and biomedical industry. CFD has become very common. So what happens inside our body is nothing but a fluid flow. We have blood, which is a type of fluid, flows through our entire body. That is basically a fluid flow. So we use CFD there. Chemical processing, many industries, you have different types of chemical processes. HVAC and R means heat, ventilation, air conditioning, refrigeration, etc. I think you know what it is, right? You can simulate the entire room, which is air conditioned in such a way that every part of the room is properly air conditioned. We consider different inputs like the ventilation, the windows, the people inside, the number of people inside it, the heat from the people. If you have computers in the room, that also can be taken as an input. So different factors can be considered for proper design of the air conditioning system. Hydraulics, dams, rivers, ships. Okay, I think marine engineering, marine part is ships, submarines, boats, and whatnot. Everything. Oil and gas industry. Lot of money is there in oil and gas industry. It's a very important source of energy. Hence, very commonly used. Power generation, different types of power generation, nuclear power plants, thermal power plants, almost everywhere. Sports also, design of sports equipments. This is very commonly used. CFD is very commonly used. And let's start with the physics behind CFD. You are supposed to know, you are supposed to have some background when it comes to physics of fluid flow. So what is the difference between a viscous flow and inviscid flow? Have you heard about viscous flow and inviscid flow? What is the difference? Can you tell me? I just want to know whether you know about these things. What is a viscous flow?
So no flow resistance. It doesn't have any kind of resistance.
Yeah,
to it.
which which is the most important fluid property when it comes to viscous flow or inviscid flow. What is inviscid flow? Which fluid property is changing when you talk about viscous and inviscid flows? Viscosity, right? Viscosity.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, viscosity. For inviscid flow, viscosity must not be there. Viscous flow should have a value, but in reality all flows are viscous, and in certain cases we will assume that flow is inviscid to simplify flow problem. So again, you are supposed to have some background in the physics, and you know the difference between turbulent flow and laminar flow, right? So what is a turbulent flow? Usually in turbulent flow you have large Reynolds number. Not usually, every time. That's the definition of a turbulent flow. So again, you should know what is Reynolds number, right? What is Reynolds number? Yeah, someone is speaking, but your voice is not loud enough. Can you speak again?
More than 4,000.
Yes, that is true. You have turbulent flow when you have very high Reynolds number. What is the equation for Reynolds number?
Rho Vd by mu. Sir.
Yes. So larger the density, rho Vd, the equation, the terms in the numerator must be high and terms in the denominator must be low. So mu for the low viscosity, high velocity problems cause turbulence. I know, I mean, you must have learned it makes the flow physics very complicated. You have different scales, flow in different directions. There are many features of turbulence which makes the problem very difficult. How much I talk about it, it's okay. Let's move on. Let's simply talk about all these things, and from the next class we'll be straight away go to the syllabus and follow the order. Incompressible flow and compressible flow. If you have so what is an incompressible flow? Density will be a constant. You cannot there are water is usually considered an incompressible for all practical purpose. Actually it's compressible, but for all practical purposes usually we consider it as incompressible fluid, because it's very difficult to change the density of it, whatever forces are involved. And some fluids, for example air is usually considered as a compressible fluid. single and multi-phase flow. If you only have one type of one phase, it's called a single phase flow problem. For example, in different industries, usually we can have different types of fluid flowing together, which has which will not mix with each other and will have different properties. And you can also have flow where different flow physics is also involved. For example, if you have an fluid structure interaction problem, so you can actually have elasticity equations and Navier-Stokes equations in the same flow physics. So things can get very complicated. You can have so many phases and so many physics within one problem. Thermal density effects, if you have temperature that changes many properties, you already know that free surface flow, surface tension, chemical reactions, mass transfers, etc. Let's move on. And this is a basic classification when it comes to physics. You have inviscid flows and viscous flows, or viscid flows. It can be laminar or turbulent. It can be internal flow or external flow. Internal means inside a pipe or valve or something. And external flows, which are free flows over any hard surface, or simple flows. And like I told you, compressible flow, incompressible flow. And then comes the these equations are not quite clear. I'll change it. So what is the most important equation when it comes to fluid flow? What is the governing equation for fluid flow? It's called Navier-Stokes equations, right? Navier-Stokes equations. Okay, this is an important question. Do you know what is a Navier-Stokes equation? Anyone? Heard about it before? Yes.
Del T by del rho. Sorry, sir.
Okay, I don't want you to tell the equation. You have heard about it, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We have studied about it in the last semester, sir.
Yeah. Navier-Stokes equation. It's the term name of our subject is computational fluid dynamics, right? Fluid dynamics it's very usually, mostly the equation we deal with is a Navier-Stokes equation almost all the time. So this is a very, 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 very important equation that we'll use very often. So the Navier-Stokes equation involve there are different forms of it. You can have a continuity equation and a momentum equation. You probably remember this. Okay. This slide is not good. Okay. Claude Louis Navier and George Gabriel Stokes. That's where the Navier-Stokes come from. Yeah, this is the equation. So there are 1,000 different ways you can write it, and you'll be seeing it very often in any fluid mechanics course. So this is the basic equation. It's kind of the Newton law. Net force is equal to mass into acceleration. So the left side you have rho multiplied by total derivative of velocity. You can see that this derivative, it's not the small letter d. The capital letter D represents the total derivative. Means there is a temporal component and a spatial component. So there will be temporal acceleration and spatial acceleration, or convective acceleration. So these accelerations, accelerations are caused by different types of forces. So an important part is pressure and forces from viscosity and body forces. 3 parts. That's those are the 3 terms here. I don't think it's a very good idea to talk about it for a long time. We'll move on. Let's. So these equations here, the same equation I have shown you just now is written in a different way. See, rho multiplied by total derivative. Total derivative involved. This is the temporal part. This is the convective acceleration, and this is dou p dou x in x direction. Okay, this is the x component of the equation. Mu multiplied by second derivative of velocity component in each direction multiplied by body forces. So same equation in y direction and z direction. Let's move on. Okay, we don't need this. So now what I'll do is that I'll go through the whole process, the entire steps involved in CFD. The first step is the mathematical representation of the physical problem. Whatever the problem you have, actual problem, you have a flow in a pipe, inside a pipe. Now the problem is that exact solution exists only for some simple cases. If you have simple fluid flow, there are so many inputs involved in it. Even something as easy as a for a laminar pipe flow. I think, yeah, I'll show you this case. See, in this case, you have fluid flow through a fluid flow between 2 parallel plates. You must have derived the governing equation. No, from the governing equation, you must have found out the solution for the problem. There are very simple cases in which you can calculate the flow variables, the field variables analytically. But in real engineering problems, this cannot be done. It's almost nowhere you can use this in real life. So the governing equation you usually have is a Navier-Stokes equation which cannot be solved. Very important. Navier-Stokes equation cannot be analytically solved. In this case, what happened is that in Navier-Stokes equation, many terms got cancelled because of simplification, and the final expression was a very simple one which can be analytically solved. But this is not the case in most of the time, and there is no analytical solution to Navier-Stokes equation with boundary conditions. So we need some sort of modeling. By this what I mean is that what equation do you write? In Navier-Stokes equation, if the fluid is incompressible, you have a more you have a simplified equation. If the fluid is compressible, you have little more complicated equation. You can for inviscid flows you assume that there is no viscosity, so that becomes even simpler. Body forces, different types of body forces. Some flows are even more complicated. For example, blood flow. Blood flow is not even a Newtonian flow, so very difficult to use a partial differential equation to model the fluid flow. And turbulent flow, that is the most complicated case. In turbulent flow, you have a large number of scales, which is computationally very, very heavy. So you need a further modeling. You have to make several assumptions to make the whole system much simpler. There are models called K epsilon and K omega model, which we will probably talk about later. RANS and LES, large eddy simulations. Large eddy, for example, large eddy simulation means eddies of smaller scales are neglected. So this is again a kind of assumption. And usually for an unsteady case, in general, you have initial conditions and boundary conditions. So the initial conditions usually refers to the state of the flow problem at time t is equal to 0. And boundary usually talks about the restrictions from boundary in the spatial coordinates. I'm sure you have heard about these terms. So you have initial boundary value problem, which is a general case. So they include partial differential equation, initial conditions, and boundary conditions. This thing complete the modeling of the flow problem. So modeling means you write down a partial differential equation along with initial conditions and boundary conditions. That that represents the actual flow problem. Will it give you exact solutions? Will it perfectly simulate the actual engineering problem? No. But is it enough for us to do analysis and design in engineering? Usually yes. So that's the purpose of modeling. Coming up with equations, PDEs, initial conditions and boundary conditions. Next part is, once you have equations, you discretize the equation. What does it mean? You come up with a system of algebraic equation. In short, after modeling, you have a difficult partial differential equation along with initial conditions and boundary conditions. And in discretization part, we will convert these differential equations into a system of linear algebraic equations. Means in the form AX is equal to B. In mathematics, in algebra, you must have you must be familiar with this form AX is equal to B. You find out X by solving the system using different methods. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. So this is the discretization part. You convert the differential equation into a system of algebraic equations, and we solve the system to get an approximate solution. So the solving part is you need a geometry, you need to model the actual geometry, you need to specify flow conditions, properties, select proper models, initial conditions, boundary conditions, and you need a grid. Okay, I'll talk about grid. You just hear it right now. You need to make a grid, and transformation, maybe it's not necessary all the time. Numerical parameters flow, then you need to simulate the whole flow. After simulation, you analyze your result. It's called post processing. Visualize the result, do uncertainty assessment. So that is the basically the process of simulation. Okay, don't worry too much here, simply talk about it. So what is the grid generation part? If you have a flow of physics within a domain, we come up with a grid, sometimes a structured grid, sometimes an unstructured grid. So we use different types of methods to convert a PDE into a system of algebraic equations. Finite difference method, finite volume method, finite element method, etc. are examples. So for this discretization part, you need to actually split the whole domain into really small parts, and in those parts where flow physics is complicated, you need a much refined grid, and you need a not so much refined grid in those parts of the domain where flow physics is simpler. So the grid, that is the term grid resolution. This is highly resolved grids are seen near the wall, and not so resolved grids are seen in the middle of the okay, someone is trying to join or something. So if you have highly refined grid, you have a better solution. If you have a not so refined grid, you have a poorer solution. So this shows results from see, if you are discretizing the entire body of a cow, this is a not so refined grid. You can see that we have highly approximated the body of the animal. So in the last picture, you can see that by using very refined grids, you can model the body of the animal in a much better way. So that's what the term grid resolution means. So once you solve the system of algebraic equation, you have the result. What is the result? It's when you are solving a Navier-Stokes equation, the result is usually the field variables, the pressure and the three velocity components. So that's so from the solution, you can't really understand anything. You have a list of pressure and list of velocity. Now you need to analyze the field variables and do whatever necessary for the design problem or whatever problem you are working on. Many physical processes like vorticities and wall shear stresses may be analyzed, and different derived quantities like force, like we told for a flight simulation, if you need to calculate force on the aircraft wing, you don't get force directly. Solving Navier-Stokes equation, you get velocity and pressure. From those field variables, you need to calculate these quantities, after the simulation process. It's called post processing. And then visualize the result, visualize the actual result to study the different problems involved in the the question you are trying to solve. So what are the currently available CFD softwares? There are so many softwares, so many of them. But very popular commercial softwares are Fluent, CFX. Fluent is a component in ANSYS. Fluent, CFX, Cosmol, and so many others. There are so many softwares. This is CFD Online is a very popular website which people really ask. If you have some question that you cannot find the answer of, if you post it in CFD Online, you're likely to get an answer. And many things, the jobs related to CFD are usually posted in CFD Online. It's a very popular website among CFD people. Websites of commercial CFD packages, not really important. So before the simulation process, you know that you need to generate a grid. Grid generation is not easy as it sounds. It's there are again softwares exclusively for generating grids. Some examples are given here. Visualization. Once you have the result, you can visualize it using a different software. It's examples are TechPlot and FieldView. See, I use ParaView. See, this one is a ParaView. Okay. I also right now I'm solving a fluid structure interaction problem using finite element method. I'm using a open source library called Deal2. Okay, this is the web page of Deal2. Deal2 does not have a user interface, but if you are dealing with numerical, if you are developing numerical techniques, this can be a very useful source. The only problem here is that it does not have a user interface. You need to actually write these codes for the simulation. So once you do the simulation, I don't know, this I'm just showing you some of the simulation I did recently. Just okay, this is what is this? Yeah, this is our grid. Okay, this is the okay. I'll show you the okay surface. Okay, I have a channel here. Channel is completely blocked with an elastic blockage. Okay, this is a block, complete blockage. When I let in fluid here, it cannot flow. But if you give in large pressure, this blockage can actually deform. So there are two equations involved: Navier-Stokes equation in the fluid part and elasticity equations in the solid part. So this looks like a very simple problem. It's really not. See, this is a grid I'm using. Okay, I have discretized the domain. This grid is not sufficient, but just for the I'm just showing you what I've. So once this is ParaView is a software for like I told you, for post processing. So I've loaded a result from a simulation. So you can see that when the fluid comes in, the elastic blockage actually moves from left to right and oscillates a little bit. And I'm also changing the grid to capture the interface between solid and fluid, and I can also analyze the different variables. For example, let's say I need to see the velocities. What I can do is that I can see all those velocities. I can use I can see how velocity varies as time changes. This is actually something I'm developing, nothing good enough, but I'm just showing what it does. So there are usually when you do the simulation, you have I have 4 variables here, because since I'm also considering the elasticity equations, I have pressure, displacement, and 3 components of velocity. So I can see, for example, y displacement. So there is no displacement in the fluid part, and in the solid part there are displacement in either direction. This is simply y displacement. So for x displacement, plot looks something like that. So when you have a fluid with a certain pressure, the elastic blockage moves towards right, and those parts which moves which has a high displacement, x displacement, is well shown here. So this is how you do it. Not very important. I'm just showing how you do the post processing. Okay, so today that's it. I have given you a brief introduction to the subject. So from next class onwards, we'll delve into the equations involved and some ideas in a very structured way. So any questions? Any questions at all? Any questions regarding the subject, regarding what I taught, or how we do this, or regarding the classes? Any questions at all?
Sir,
Yes.
I said we need to do the designing part as well. What later on?
As a part of the course, no, you don't need to do design.
Oh, okay, sir.
So I think for the entire course, you may not even need to do an actual simulation. Actually, you can see that doing a simulation is not very difficult. If you have a if you have ANSYS softwares in your computer, you can easily watch a 10-minute video in YouTube to do a full simulation. You can do the whole process. The process we have talked about, start right from modeling to post processing. You can very easily do it in 15 minutes if you'd like. But unfortunately, CFD is not that. The theory and the ideas behind CFD is a little complicated. So we'll try to learn some of the physics and math behind the whole process. So that is the purpose of the course. I think course objectives are these are the objectives of the course. See, one is compare experimental and analytical methods, demonstrate domain discretization, application, analyze practical aspects, apply the concept of CFD to solve heat transfer and fluid for industrial problems. So yeah, CO4, I don't think CO4 even applies to our syllabus. Hmm. Okay, for we can do some. We must. Okay, we'll do that. We'll definitely solve the problem. Okay, I'll give you one assignment later. Okay, any other questions? Ayyo.